I think at least 13 women in Puerto Rico died from taking it, you know? And then also, in addition to the hormones, there's all the endocrine disruptors and hormone shit that were, you know, there's a lot of other variables too that are probably exacerbating it. But I just felt like a zombie a lot of the time. And then they put me on Adderall because I was too, and then it just becomes this whack-a-mole thing where you're like, how about instead of adding all these other things, I just subtract this thing? And it didn't, and then I was put on Prozac. And then I was like smoking weed to try to fall asleep because I couldn't sleep. But then it was like, I just need to get off all of this, you know? So in January, I just went off literally everything.
Well, you seem remarkably balanced.
Oh, thanks.
You do.
Thanks.
You're there all the time. Because sometimes you would be off to the races.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am an intense person still, you know, just
of course.
by default.
Yeah.
But I think that being on birth control, like I was kind of like exhausted and manic at the same time, all the time. And,
that makes sense.
You know, and it does put you in a state of hypervigilance, you know, being pregnant. Yeah, I'm nesting. I'm, you know, want to be organized, obviously. I'm thinking about, you know, the kid, obviously, and taking care of myself. But I look back at the time that I was on a lot of that birth control shit. And
It's also, people say, well, you know, birth control led to this sexual revolution where women had freedom. They could do whatever. They didn't have to worry about being knocked up by a guy if they wanted to have recreational sex.
Right.
And so people applauded it for that. But no one thought about the long-term consequences. And then also, like, the difference in how people interact with each other. Like, there was a consequence when people were living in the 1930s or whatever. Like, you could get pregnant. Yeah. It was everyone was aware of it. Like, there was a danger to it. And when you could just take a pill and not sweat it, then it's just like this change in your natural behavior.
And yeah, and I guess I feel like I stayed in a lot of, I mean, granted, look, I not that I was ready to have a kid before now, not that I was ready to commit to anyone, like that I wasn't fully cooked as a person yet or whatever, but I found myself staying in a lot of relationships that I probably shouldn't have stayed in, that if I hadn't been on birth control, I'd be like, oh, this isn't the father of my kid, I should move on. Or, you know, or you end up getting chemically addicted to somebody through having good sex with someone or getting all the oxytocin or whatever, and then you end up staying in a lot of relationships you maybe shouldn't stay in instead of just working on yourself. You know, I initially went on it. It's so crazy. I think about all like the weird, you know, because I used to do for money when I first moved to LA and I was broke. I would do focus groups and I would, you know, take these experimental pills and do these like clinical trials and stuff. But when I was, I want to say 15, I went on Accutane, which is that acne medication. They make you take birth control simultaneously so that you know, that's the first time I went on it. You know, at 15 years old. So I was on Accutane, which, you know.
Santino said it was the worst thing he ever took.
I mean, the main side effect is anal bleeding.
That's the main one?
Yeah. It's like, and you can't absorb vitamin D well. I mean, there's a lot of problems.
It made Santino like super depressed.
Really?
Yeah, he said it was fucking horrible, but it did fix his acne.
Yeah, it works. It's a miracle. I mean, because it shrinks your, I think it's a huge dose of vitamin A, I believe is what it is. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But it shrinks your oil glands.
Some patients may develop tears in the lining of the anus, which may cause pain and bleeding, especially during bowel movements. Duh. When's it going to cause pain?
I know. It's like,
when you take massive shits and your shit pipe is ripped open.
You know, so I was put on it at that, and I just think about like all the prescription drugs. Like I was put on at such a, you know, young age, and, you know, God, what kind of impact that had.
Well, there's so many people that are on them, and so many people that are young, and they don't even get a chance to make that decision for themselves.
Yeah.
They're certainly not making an informed decision, and so many parents are just listening to their doctors, and doctors are just pill pushers.
Yeah. And I was actually put on, I mean, this was a couple years ago, and I didn't take it that much, but 5 milligrams of time-release Adderall to sleep. So I guess it's like if you actually have sort of ADHD, Adderall calms you down. And I'm like, maybe I just need to be tired longer. Maybe I just need to get up and do some shit. Maybe I just need to write some jokes. Like maybe I just am going to go to sleep a little bit later and wake up a little bit later.
And there's another one, like the Ambien people. People that have to take Ambien to go to sleep.
Dude, I have you taken it?
No.
Oh, dude, you should try it. It's everyone that takes Ambien, I'm kind of like, my man, like I've taken it before. It's pretty amazing. The problem is I think you try to fight it because it feels good. and I would wake up the next morning and there would just be like open cans of peas that I would sleep eat. I would wake up. I remember one morning I woke up, I thought I had been shot. I was like covered in barbecue sauce. I had just like eaten barbecue. It makes you do wild shit.
Yeah.
Every now and then I'm like, we should probably at least try the drug that everyone's on, going crazy on, just to see.
The problem is if you like it and it
Oh, that's
ruins
the
your
problem.
life. That's what I'm worried about with a lot of drugs. I'd love to try Adderall, but I don't want that to be a thing that I lean on sometimes.
When I wrote a book, I took it a couple times, like 20 milligrams. Like, you got to really make sure, like, we already are pretty motivated people. You got to really make sure that you lock into the thing you want to focus on, or else you'll just be
all over the place.
Yeah, or you'll just be like cleaning one thing for 4.5 hours. You know what I mean? Like,
that's meth behavior too.
Isn't it boiled down to being meth?
It's pretty close. It's definitely meth's cousin.
And what's the difference between that and Ritalin? Because Ritalin. I know people that are still on Ritalin.
Yeah, Ritalin's a little bit different. But
and modafinil is another one, right?
That is Provigil.
Oh, Provigil.
Provigil and Nuvigil. And those are, originally they were drugs I believe were developed for performance enhancing, like for cognitive performance. But then they realized that you can't prescribe it for that. So they started prescribing it for narcolepsy. But it keeps you from going to sleep. But it doesn't, it's a weird one because it doesn't make you feel like you're high. Like, blah, blah, blah. But it just, there's an interesting reaction that your brain has. A lot of people are on it. A lot of people are on it. And it's so effective that I think Tim Ferriss said when he was writing his book about different hacks that he didn't put it in there because he felt like people would be eating it like candy.
Yeah. I mean, I gotta say, when we were doing the roasts last year, a lot of the writers and comics, they were doing the chocolate, like mushrooms and chocolate, like 3 milligrams mushrooms and chocolate, and I did that, and that felt like I felt so clear. I felt energized. I was like
microdosing.
Yeah. I feel like
that's a good move.
Whatever my brain chemistry was, I thought it would like chill me out and make me sort of like numb or not funny. Like, it made me feel very because maybe I wasn't bogged